here's a quick review preparation for exam 3 of accounting 186. First thing, let's figure out how to make a copycat of this graph. This is just an image. And to do that, we need to select the data, insert, and come over here to where the charts are. And I'll grab a 2D pie. And that started to pretty close. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this up here. Let's see, right where overlay the upper left-hand corner. And then I can resize it so it's the same size. Okay, now that I have that, move this over here. I can start changing things out. The first thing I'll do, the outside. So if you look at this, it's got a gray line on the outside. This one just has a white line. So I will change that to format cells, format chart area. We'll come over here to where border, solid line, and I'll make that white. Now it has the white border. And I got that, let's see, right over here. Actually, I right-click, format area, line, solid line. Anyway, that's what I did. And the next thing I want to do over here, I'm going to get rid of this legend. I click on the legend, delete. Legend no longer there. I want to add the title up here. Click on, there's a couple ways I can do that. One is I can select the chart title and just start typing in, whatever. Or I can type in favorite beach activity. Favorite beach activity. The other way, I click on this data set. I'll come up here to the formula bar. And you'll notice right here in the very first one, there's a place for me to put something. I'm going to click on cell A1. That gives me the title. And I can take this off. Add chart element, chart title, above chart. Now the chart title reflects what the data set is. If I start typing something in here, it'll overwrite what's in there, which is why I didn't appear before. So I just deleted it and added it back again into the chart. So the next thing I want to do is, let's see, it looks like I need to add some data labels. I right click and click on add data labels. And I have some data labels, these numbers, but the counts aren't what I want. I want the percentage and the category. I'm going to click on data labels or right click, format data labels. And over on the right hand thing, I have this thing that come up. As long as I want to make sure I have this little thing right selected, little graphy thing. And I want category name, unselected values, and percentages, and ensure show leader lines are selected. Great, that looks good. It looks like I want to take these and drag them out. And it looks like I want to change the format of, actually change the format of all these. I'm going to select the entire thing. I'll go to home. That looks like a Garamond. And maybe a little bit bigger. So that's a size 9. How about 11? Maybe. There we go. That looks like they're the same size. I'm going to click on these data labels. Italicize them. Click on the title and make that bold. And there we go. That looks like we have a close match. So there's an example of mimicking the graph. Look at pivot tables. What do we have here? I'm going to grab this and move this over here because that's going to get overwritten. I'm indebted to contextures.com to give me this data set. We make a pivot table. And what you can do, I think they already did this, but if you select this data, and the whole thing is this named or not? Well, you can rename it and put it up here. Oh, it looks like it's not named. If you have more than a couple tables, it might make sense to name it. Otherwise, if you're just doing like 1 or 2 tables, it's probably fine. It's not that much different. We're going to put a pivot table, look at year and gender, with count of incident type in the columns. So to make a pivot table, we need to come to the insert ribbon. The insert ribbon is right up here. we want to click on pivot table. So I'll click on pivot table, and the first thing it'll ask me is, what range do I want? If I have a named range, I can type that in. Otherwise, I can click on the range that I want. Oh, it is named safety data. I can do A1 and then 515 or the safety data, whatever it's labeled. This has the entire table that I want. And I'll put it right here and pivot table SP or P4. I've got my pivot table. Columns I want gender, I want year, incident, type. These are the things that I want. What I want is, this isn't exactly in the same order of category that I want. I want the count of incident type in the columns. And so to do that, I'll put incident type where it says columns. And I want the year in the rows. And actually, we can move these around. So let's put year on top and gender on the bottom. Incident type, we have it in the column, but we want the counts as well. So I'm going to grab this incident type and I'll drop it in values also. And now we have the count of incident. Great, perfect. This table is set up the way we want it. The other table we want is this one, year, incident type, and count, days lost. Let's make another pivot table. I'm going to do insert pivot table. And the data that I want is, I'm going to grab the table that I want. We want to put it in the existing worksheet. We'll put it right here. Click OK. And we want days lost. Or we'll year in there. Days lost. There we go. Let's put year, I'm going to move year over here above incident type. And then sum of days lost. We'll put days lost in there twice. And what I'll do for the first one, I'm going to right click right over here, this little thing right here. Right click there, and it will have value field settings. And let's do a count. The first one, actually, let's do this one. You don't have to do this, but it does look a little more professionally. Instead of the custom name, I'm just going to call it count. There are how many instances happen. The next one, sum of days lost. I'm going to rename that to missed days. So do something that makes sense. So this tells us that in 2020, there were 221 incidents, which resulted in 179 missed days. Look at things slip and trip. There's 30 instances, which meant 21 missed days, and so on. Great. There's our pivot tables that we have. What ifs? We have a couple scenarios here we want to look at. What happens if I wrote a formula in here, the future value, that's interest rate divided by 12. Anyways, there's a formula that tells us what the payoff amount is going to be for a 15-year mortgage for a specific interest, for 8% interest rate, for $650,000. What's the payoff amount going to be after different intervals of year? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to put that in there. We want the payoff amount, so I'll put the payoff amount formula at the very top. So that's our goal. And these are the things we're going to, the number of years that we'll select to do this analysis off of. I select this whole thing. I come up to the data ribbon, which is right up here. And then I want to go to what if analysis. When I pick on the what if analysis, I'll have 3 options. The one I want is data table. And where it says in row input cell, leave that blank. Don't put anything in there. Column, we have a column of years. So 2 to 6. I'm going to put on years. That's into cell B4. B4 is the input for the payoff amount. So I click OK. Now, what this tells me is after 2 years, the payoff amount for the $650,000 loan at 8% monthly annual payments. If I'm paying $7,000 every month, then I'll owe 580,000 left. After 6 years, I'll have that. What happens after 10 years? Oh, look at that. Well, you can adjust these. It's alive. Well, that's negative because you're making additional payments. After after 12 years, you're really close to having it all paid off. It's like 2 more payments, so I make it. So there's a single table. What happens if you want to consider 2 different variables that would change? Let's put years on here. So I'll put 2, 3, 4, 5. You put whatever you want in there. What about different loan amounts? Instead of just borrowing 650,000, if you were going to make monthly payments of 7,000, 8% interest rate at different loan amounts, what is the payoff going to be? Different number of years to different loan amounts. So I'm going to put 500,000 first. Add 50,000 each of these. Okay, so we've got loan amounts varying from $500,000 to $750,000, and year payoff amounts 2 to 9 years. In the upper left-hand corner, it's really important. This is the target formula that we're going to use for all of these. We want to have the payoff amount in here, so I'll put the payoff formula in there, which we calculated. I'll select all of this data, all the table where I'm going to use, and I'm going to go to data table. The rows I have are the present value or the loan amount. So I'm going to put in B5. That is this cell right here. Oh, cell B5, I'll click on that. The column, those are the number of years. So I'll click on cell B4 because those years will vary as we look at this. Click OK. Now we have this table. What that tells us is, for example, I'm just going to highlight this. Just for making for discussion's sake. So if we look at the intersection of $600,000 mortgage, 5 years, if you're making $7,000 monthly payment at 8%, the payoff amount is going to be $380,000 left. So there's the what if tables. Let's look at what if scenarios. For this one, I picked 4 different houses and that we're going to potentially buy. And normally you pay 20% down, then there's a remaining mortgage balance you have to borrow for the house. And I put that in column C. So let's go ahead and start setting this up. We want to go to data again, what if scenario manager. I'm going to add I'm going to have 4 different scenarios that pertain to this. We have the first one is Honolulu. The cell we change is this one right here, G2. We'll change that because to whatever the amount is. Honolulu home is going to be 576,000. It's in there already. Click OK. Let's add Salt Lake City. The input cell we have in here is G2. That's what we want to change, and that will change everything else. We only have 1 input cell. Maybe like from the homework, you had different communities and you input the loan amount and the interest rate because we looked at some of the scenarios included both a 15-year and a 30-year mortgage. Those carry different interest rates. So you can have as many input values as you want. We only have 1, at least for this example. Salt Lake City, you're borrowing $463,920. Next one is Las Vegas. And changing cells G2. Okay, that's connected to formula, which is the same one. Las Vegas, 359,120. And we'll put 1 more scenario here. It's just my computer's taking a minute to think about it. Once you input all of these, it's good to check your work. Okay, I'm going to close this out. Open it up again. See if I get good luck. Oh, there we go. Let's add Kansas City. Changing cell G2. And we want to put in an amount of 207,520. Okay, now that we have that in there, sometimes my Excel does this. I don't know what's going on. Okay, open that up again. So if I want to check this, I click on Kansas City, for example, click on show. You'll notice it just updated cell G2. Now it says 207,520. That was the amount I told it to put for the scenario. Las Vegas was 359,120. Beautiful. Salt Lake City, 463,920. That's what I want. Honolulu. And really I can put in a different amount in here. I'm going to put, okay. Let's look at the scenario manager. What I want, if I want to make a nice table that's a nice summary of everything, I verified that everything was input was correct. If I don't like it, I can edit it. I can come back and edit, or I can delete things. I'm going to click on summary, and this will ask me, first of all, the result cell. So these are the output cells. I want output of what the monthly payment is, the total payments over the life of the loan, and the total interest that the bank will charge me for the privilege of being able to borrow money from them. I'm going to pick cell G4 to G6. Those are all the output cells. Click OK. And then this will spit out a whole new tab, which has here. So it's got, because I had 700,000 in there, it gave that to me. At 700,000, that's what the payment would be, total payment, total interest. But I also have Honolulu, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, and Kansas City. And these tell me what the loan amounts are, along with what the monthly payments would be, total payments and total interest. It allows me to do a little bit of comparison. And oh, I should mention this. These cells were renamed. If you click on a cell and come up here, you can rename that cell. G2 is interesting, but loan amount makes more sense, especially when you output something like this into the scenario summary. Now where it says, instead of saying G2, it says loan amount. This would have said G5, G6, G7 instead of payment, total payments, or total interest. What happened to be that these ones are renamed. So that's payment. So if you look at, you look right here, total payment, those cells are renamed as opposed to G11, just those letters. That makes it a little bit easier when you spit this out. Well, anyways, I hope this was useful in describing how to go through all of the examples. You'll have examples just like this on the last exam with same hot dog, different toppings. They're probably slightly different, but you'll get to build them up just like we did on on this exam. Good luck. I hope you do well on the exam.